When they use your past against you, respond like a Stoic. Have you ever noticed how some people only remember the worst version of you? The version that made mistakes, lost control, or said something you regret? They forget everything you've become since then. And one day, out of nowhere, they remind you, not to understand you, but to wound you. Maybe it's an old friend, a former lover, even a family member. They reach into your past, pull out your scars, and hold them up like evidence. You remember that, right? That's who you were. And in that moment, something inside you tightens. Not because your past hurts, but because someone is trying to use it as a weapon. That's when most people start defending themselves. I've changed. I'm not that person anymore. But the more we explain, the more we fall into their trap. Because the moment you start defending your peace, you've already lost it. Welcome to Ancient Stoic Secrets, where we explore the timeless wisdom that helps you master your emotions, protect your peace, and live with unshakable calm in a chaotic world. Today's message is for anyone who's ever had their past used against them. Anyone who's been reminded of who they used to be just when they were starting to feel free. Let's be honest, we've all done things we're not proud of. You might have hurt someone, failed at something, lost yourself for a while. But the Stoics remind us your past doesn't define you, how you face it does. Seneca once said, "There is nothing more noble than standing before your own faults and saying, 'Yes, I did that, and I've learned.'" Think about that. What if every time someone threw your past at you, you didn't react, you reflected? What if instead of defending who you were, you simply stood firm in who you are now? Because here's the truth. People who weaponize your past aren't looking for truth. They're looking for control. They want your reaction, your shame, your explanation. But the Stoic doesn't give them that gift. The Stoic looks them calmly in the eye and says, "Yes, that happened, and I've learned from it." No excuses, no anger, just clarity. And that's what this video is about. 3 Stoic ways to respond when someone brings up your past to hurt you. Not with rage, not with defense, but with the kind of peace that no one can take away from you. Because when you can face your past without shame, you become untouchable. Let's begin. 1. Yes, that happened. There's a strange power in the words, "yes, that happened." Most people don't realize it, but denial is one of the heaviest chains we carry. We spend years pretending certain memories never existed. The bad decisions, the relationships that fell apart, the nights we said things we can't take back. We bury them under achievement, distraction, or fake smiles. But here's the irony. What we refuse to face quietly rules us. I remember a man I once coached. He built a successful business after years of struggle. But every time someone mentioned his early bankruptcy, his face would tighten and he'd rush to explain how things were different now. I told him, "You're still letting that failure own you. The moment you try to justify it, you give it power again." A month later, he told me something changed. Someone at a dinner brought up his bankruptcy in a mocking tone, and he simply said, "Yeah, that happened. I learned a lot from it." Then he kept eating. The room went silent because no one knows what to do when you're not ashamed. That's what the Stoics understood. Seneca wrote, "He who faces his faults conquers them." When you stop hiding your story, it stops haunting you. When you accept your past, you stop letting others define it. Think about it. The people who try to use your past against you aren't searching for truth. They're searching for your reaction. They want to see if the wound is still open. But when you respond calmly, when you own your story, they lose that power instantly. So the next time someone brings up your mistakes, don't defend yourself. Don't over-explain. Just breathe, look them in the eye, and say, "Yes, that happened." No excuses, no guilt, no shame. That simple sentence says, I'm not running from who I was, I'm standing in who I am now. Because here's the quiet truth. A person who's made peace with their past is unstoppable. No gossip, no judgment, no accusation can shake them. They've already faced their own storm and survived it. 2. I've learned from it, turning pain into power. Once you accept your past, the next step is to transform it. The Stoics believe that every wound carries within it a lesson, and those who extract that lesson grow beyond the pain. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The obstacle is the way." In other words, what stands in your way becomes the way forward. I once met a woman who had gone through a painful divorce. She told me, "For years I thought my marriage was my biggest failure. Now I see it as my greatest teacher." She learned patience, boundaries, and the kind of love that starts from within. She said something I'll never forget. "Because I broke, I finally understood what I needed to rebuild." That's the essence of Stoic transformation, turning pain into wisdom, not resentment. You see, those who bring up your past are trapped in yesterday's version of you, but you've evolved. Like a sword forged in fire, you've become stronger through struggle. The cracks in your life aren't weaknesses, they're the way the light ends. Think of Nelson Mandela, 27 years in prison, yet he emerged not with hatred, but with a deeper understanding of forgiveness and leadership. He once said, "Resentment is like drinking poison and hoping it will kill your enemies." He didn't let his suffering define him, he refined it into wisdom. So when someone reminds you of your old mistakes, the job you lost, the friendship you broke, the dream that failed, you can simply say, "Yes, I've learned from it." Because the lesson is the victory. And here's the beauty of that. When you start to see your past as a teacher, you stop being a victim to it.
You realize nothing was wasted. Not the heartbreak, not the loss, not even the humiliation. It all shaped the person who stands here today. More grounded, more compassionate, more aware. That's the Stoic art of living, to turn suffering into strength and mistakes into meaning. You stop asking, "Why did this happen to me?" and start asking, "What did this teach me?" When you live that way, no one can use your past to hurt you because you've already turned it into your greatest source of power. 3. Why are you bringing this up now? There's one simple question that can silence anyone who tries to use your past against you. It's not angry, it's not defensive, it's simply this: why are you bringing this up now? When you ask it calmly, clearly, the energy shifts instantly. Because most people expect you to fight back, to explain, to react. But instead, you give them something they didn't prepare for: your peace. I once saw this play out at a family dinner. A man in his 40s, successful, peaceful, clearly changed, was suddenly teased by a cousin about that wild night from decades ago. Everyone laughed. He didn't. He just looked at the cousin and said softly, "Why are you bringing this up now?" Silence. It wasn't an attack, it was a mirror. And in that silence, you could almost see the cousin realizing what he'd done. Because that's what this question does. It forces people to look inward. It exposes the intention behind their words. When you ask why, you shift from being the target to being the observer. The Stoics called this seeing the situation from above, to rise above the emotions, to watch the drama without becoming part of it. And from that higher place, you can see clearly. People who try to hurt others are usually wrestling with something inside themselves. Epictetus said, "The one who harms others is already in pain." So when someone brings up your past, it's often not about you, it's about them. Maybe they're stuck in the same version of themselves that you've already outgrown. Maybe your growth makes them uncomfortable because it reminds them of the courage they haven't found yet. That's why calmness is the most powerful weapon you'll ever have. When you stay composed, you reflect their energy back to them, and they have no choice but to face it. Your peace becomes a mirror. So next time someone digs up your past, don't rush to defend yourself. Don't explain. Just breathe and ask, why are you bringing this up now? You'll be surprised how many storms end in silence when you stop providing the wind. 4. The power of silence and self-control. The Stoics' final armor. There's a moment in every confrontation where silence speaks louder than words. That's the moment the Stoic masters understood best. You see, in a world that rewards noise, where everyone's arguing, proving, and reacting, the one who stays calm commands the room, not by dominance, but by presence. I once asked an old mentor, how do you keep your peace when people provoke you? He smiled and said, because I don't give them free rent in my mind. That's the secret. Every reaction you give is a piece of your energy you hand to someone else. And most of the time, the person provoking you isn't seeking truth, they're seeking control. They want to see you lose yourself. But when you respond with silence, you tell the world, I am not owned by your opinion. Seneca wrote, the one who angers you conquers you. And he was right. You might lose the argument, but you keep your peace. You might not prove your point, but you preserve your dignity. I remember once being accused of something I didn't do. I had every reason to defend myself, every piece of evidence to prove them wrong. But I stayed quiet. Not because I didn't care, but because I realized something. I don't need to win battles that truth will eventually win for me. Silence doesn't mean weakness. It means you're strong enough to let your actions, your growth, and your peace speak louder than your defense ever could. In today's world where everyone is performing outrage, the one who stays grounded becomes unforgettable. People may not agree with you, but they will feel your composure. They'll remember the calm. So when someone calls you names, when they twist your story, when they remind you of your lowest moments, smile, breathe, and stay silent. Because silence isn't the absence of power. It's the proof that you've mastered it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, when someone acts wrongly, it's because they don't know what's right. Teach them, not through words, but through behavior. That's what silence does. It teaches. It shows the world that you are no longer a prisoner of reaction, but a master of response. And that's where real freedom begins.
5. Transforming the past into strength. There's one truth most people don't talk about. The past doesn't just shape you, it tests you. And every time you revisit it with clarity instead of shame, you rise a little higher than before. I used to believe peace meant forgetting the people who hurt me, forgetting the version of myself that made all the wrong choices. But peace isn't forgetting, it's remembering without letting it own you. I once met a man who spent years recovering from addiction. He told me the hardest part wasn't getting clean. It was facing the people who remembered the man I used to be. At first, every glance felt like judgment. Every question sounded like a reminder. You were that guy. But one day, he decided to stop running. He looked an old friend in the eye and said, yes, that was me. But this, he pointed to his heart, this is me now. And in that moment, he realized something powerful. When you're no longer ashamed of your story, no one can use it to chain you. That's the Stoic transformation, not to erase your past, but to redeem it, to take what once broke you and use it as a foundation for wisdom. Think about it. Every scar on your body tells a story of survival. So why should the scars on your soul be any different? The Stoic doesn't hide them. He wears them like medals, proof that he's lived, learned, and endured. There's a Japanese art called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken pottery with gold. The cracks aren't hidden, they're highlighted. Because the flaw isn't the end, it's the proof of resilience. That's what the Stoic does with his past. He fills his cracks with wisdom and turns his breaking points into beauty. So ask yourself, what part of your past are you still hiding in the dark when it could be shining in the light? What story are you still running from when it could be the very story that sets you free? A person who's made peace with their past becomes unshakable. You can't embarrass them. You can't shame them because they've already walked through fire and they know what it costs to come out whole. That's the paradox of pain. When you finally stop resisting it, it transforms you. Pain becomes purpose. Shame becomes strength. And your past, the one thing they thought could destroy you, becomes the very proof that you've been reborn. Maybe you've noticed this. Some people only remember the version of you that no longer exists. They still see the one who failed, who lost control, who didn't yet know better. And that's okay, because their memory is not your mirror. You've changed. You've grown. You've learned how to meet the parts of yourself you once avoided, not with shame, but with understanding. That's what the Stoic path really is. It's not about becoming untouchable. It's about becoming unshaken. Learning to walk through life with a quiet mind and an open heart, even when the world keeps trying to pull you back into old versions of yourself. I think we all reach a point where we realize peace doesn't come from forgetting what happened. It comes from making peace with it. When you can look back and say, yes, that was me, but this is me now. That's when freedom begins. And if this message reached you today, if it made you breathe a little deeper, or remember that you're not defined by your worst moments, then let it ripple outward. Someone out there is still trapped in the chapter you've already healed from. They're waiting for a reminder that they can start over too. So share this video with them. It might be the quiet push they need. And if you're walking your own Stoic journey, learning how to stay calm in chaos, how to master your emotions without losing your heart, I invite you to be part of this community of calm minds and grounded souls. Hit subscribe to Ancient Stoic Secrets. Like this video if it spoke to you. Share it with someone who's still trying to make peace with their past. And write this in the comments as your personal reminder. I've closed that chapter. My story moves forward. Because at the end of the day, you don't need to explain your growth to anyone. You just need to live it. And when you do, you become the proof that healing isn't about erasing your past. It's about transforming it into peace. So take a breath, stand tall, and keep walking forward. Calm, steady, untouchable.